everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Crit D&D Voyager's Guide to Ravean kind of world-building episodes. This time we're going to cover another god. This one is actually called the Moonlight Man, and he's a little bit more in tune with kind of that pantheon struggle kind of an aspect. So if we just shift on down in my document here, the Moonlight Man, he is a lawful good deity of protection and service. He is a soldier in his own right, but not a general or other unified leader so much as an inspiration. The Moonlight Man is basically a perimeter guard to the inner planes, protecting them from the ravages of the outer planes. The Moonlight Man is said to walk the length and breadth of this perimeter gate to the outer planes, keeping the threats of the outer planes at bay as they attempt to enter the material world. However, being powerful, he is primarily vigilante-like figure, sweeping out from the moonlight veil that encompasses this great division between the inner and outer planes. The Moonlight Man himself patrols the edge of this great division, and even as he holds the forces of the outer planes at bay, he too keeps the people of the inner planes from crossing through the divide and into more dangerous territory across this outer plane kind of threshold, in an effort to keep them safe. This means that even since he's the guardian, he is seen by his detractors as a jailer of sorts. They see him as a prison warden, as many kind of dimensional travelers do. They tend to have this mistrust to his cause, and this great discontent across the material plane has led to a long-lasting debate about what this god's true efforts actually are. The followers of the Moonlight Man understand that the immediate efforts of their god are to protect them and all within the inner planes by any means necessary. This is kind of a drastic mission. It's highlighted by the tenets of the Moonlight Man, by which his followers are close to adhere to. So, protect the barrier, defend the people, slay the intruders, defend the separation above all. Those tend to be his tenets. These loyal few, his followers, understand the benefit of the separation of the gods to the outer planes, and are hesitant to allow any extraplanar entity within their safe garden, evil or good, in an effort to support whatever balance does remain. Now, to break that down just a little bit, the Moonlight Man is basically this town guard of this deity. On the godly level, he serves as the person that stands in kind of a staunch opposition to the gods of dominion that want to take over and re-enter the material plane. But at the same time, he has no hesitation to remove any material plane or inner plane influence from the outer planes should it be deemed necessary. He kind of determines this on his own, which makes him more of a vigilante type force. His whole deal is that he understands that there must be a separation. It didn't exist, it exists now, and it must be maintained because at least now there's some sort of a balance. That's his whole focus. He wants to make sure that this separation and this peace is maintained. Doing this is a kind of a really big job, so his whole mission being this big of a job leads him to have limited time to try to evangelize and gain followers. That has never really been his goal. His goal is the results. His goal is the safe maintaining of this peace. And he knows that he's doing a good enough job, and he is satisfied so long as this peace is maintained. So he doesn't look for followers. However, the people that do choose to follow him tend to see him and these efforts and decide to follow him out of this inspiration. That's kind of a nice, idea. They're able to look to their god for this inspiration and define their lives to a more peaceful service, following his example. So he is one of the few gods that doesn't have to actually work to gain followers. He just sorts of accrues them. That does mean that he has quite a few less followers. He's kind of not quite a cult following, but a little bit less than a heavily established, church. Walking around the world, there are very few within Ravean, there are very few specific temples, churches, or anything else from larger community structures to the Moonlight Man. So much as the people that know of him from education or kind of a history of religious belief or anything else kind of along those lines. He tends to be followed by these people. Now, at the same time, the people that don't like him, his detractors, do not appreciate his efforts based on the fact that he still inhibits the freedom of mortals, right? He stands at the border as a guard, and that is both a guard to maintain the boundary from the outer planes and the inner planes. He says these two things should not mix. He looks at areas like Mount Celestia and the Hells on both ends of that massive spectrum and sees the outer planes for what they mostly are, which is planes of ideals, planes of absolute good to absolute evil on the spectrum, and understands that it's only the balance that is achieved with the influence of them all on the material plane that must be maintained. This free will that the material plane has to be good or evil is their choice. And he worries at this point that allowing a mortal from the material plane to freely explore the outer planes and be heavily corrupted by the extreme ideological nature of these planes would slowly eliminate their free will. So that's part of how he sees the introduction of inner plane to outer plane kind of corrupting the inner plane people, that kind of a thing. So his detractors feel as though they should be able to do whatever they would like. If they would like to go visit the Hells, sure, then they should be able to do that. They take it on as their own risk. He does not see that as a valid option. He wants, in theory, what's best for them. In theory. And so he will determine if a traveler to the outer planes is worthy of passing. And if they are not, and they persist, he may wipe them from existence because they are already corrupted. His first goal, however, is to return them to their home inner plane without any other consequences. But if he has to, he is not above eliminating the problem, because ultimately these people, these travelers, are a threat in his mind to the delicate balance that the planes have. So this is kind of the details around the Moonlight Man, and his tenets are fairly clear. Slay the intruders, defend the barrier, maintain the separation. That's his whole shtick, his whole goal. That is his purpose for being. So he doesn't neatly fit into either of the factions of gods, but he leans a little bit more towards the enduring gods side, the ones that want to leave the inner planes to self-determine. So if you were going to use the Moonlight Man in your campaign or anything else along these lines, the first recommendation that I would have is he is lawful and good, but he's almost more neutral, right? He wants what he thinks is good. He understands what he thinks as a broad scale, a broader scale than any mortal could understand. He wants what he thinks is good. So if I were to be playing him, I would recommend that, yes, while his alignment in this document is lawful good, treat him as more of a neutral good entity. He understands the rules and he wants to follow them, but he is ultimately this godly vigilante that thinks he has a righteous cause to defend the people of these planes, where some people may not actually need saving. So that is the Moonlight Man. We'll see when he pops up in our Ravean campaign, if he does. But otherwise, I thank you all for tuning in today. Remember, it doesn't take that much to make a difference out there. So go and be the difference that you want to see. Now, I wish you all the best. Have a good evening.